welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Hello everyone, and welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrosch, and tonight's episode is episode 42. We're going to go back to Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom, and it is our final Global War on Terrorism recipient. So our little mini-series inside the podcast has come to an end, and obviously, if there's another recipient from the Global War on Terrorism that comes out, I will, of course, cover it and make sure it gets put back in here, but I wanted to do this quick little section. And after this, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I'm undecided if I'm going to do in groups like I just did this or go back to a random order. I kind of like the random order. I might go back to do that. So, but tonight's episode is being brought to you by DesignCake Studios. You've heard me talk about them before. I can't say enough good things about, well, really any of the sponsors of the podcast. But specifically, DesignCake Studios. I've known Sean, the owner, for quite some time, for many years, and his attention to detail and dedication to quality is unmatched, except maybe to me. But we'll let you be the judge of that. And look, DesignCake Studios is going to bring you this episode tonight. It's a small creative design company down in Florida with big talent in graphic design and web design. If you or your business need a look, maybe you decided to draw one out on Microsoft Paint and you want to maybe get a new one because you realize that it sucks, head on over to DesignCakeStudios.com. I know I did, and I used them for my logo for the Bearded Detailer and my business cards for both my companies as well. And I always get compliments on all of those things I just mentioned, nonstop. I'm not blowing any smoke when I say that. It's the real deal. They are the real deal. And when you contact them, let them know that you heard about them here on the podcast. Because if you do that, they're going to give you a free consultation for whatever it is you need them to do. Simple as that. DesignCake Studios, fresh thinking, made bold. And now, a tale of honor. Kyle J. White was born on the 27th of March, 1987, in Seattle, Washington, and after joining the U.S. Army on the 15th of February, 2006, attended and completed basic and advanced individual trainings at Fort Benning, Georgia, followed by airborne school. He also completed the Combat Lifesaver Course, Air Assault School, Infantryman Course, Primary Leadership Development Course, and Reconnaissance and Surveillance Leaders Course. In 2006, Kyle was assigned to the 2nd Battalion of the 503rd Infantry Regiment and was then deployed to Aranis, Afghanistan, in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in early 2007. It was on this deployment, during the Battle of Aranis, that Kyle's actions would earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, Specialist Kyle J. White distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty while serving as radio telephone operator with Company C, 2nd Battalion Airborne, 503rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade, during combat operations against an armed enemy in Nuristan Province, Afghanistan, on November 9, 2007. On that day, Specialist White and his comrades were returning to Bela Outpost from Ashura with Aranis village elders. As the soldiers traversed a narrow path surrounded by mountainous, rocky terrain, they were ambushed by enemy forces from elevated positions. Pinned against a steep mountain face, Specialist White and his fellow soldiers were completely exposed to enemy fire. Specialist White returned fire and was briefly knocked unconscious when a rocket-propelled grenade impacted near him. When he regained consciousness, another round impacted near him, embedding small pieces of shrapnel in his face. Shaking off his wounds, Specialist White noticed one of his comrades laying wounded nearby. Without hesitation, Specialist White exposed himself to enemy fire in order to reach the soldier and provide medical aid. After applying a tourniquet, Specialist White moved to an injured Marine, similarly providing aid and comfort until the Marine succumbed to his wounds. Specialist White then returned to the soldier and discovered that he had been wounded again. Applying his own belt as an additional tourniquet, Specialist White was able to stem the flow of blood and save the soldier's life. Noticing that his and the other soldiers' radios were inoperative, Specialist White exposed himself to enemy fire yet again in order to secure a radio from a deceased comrade. He then provided information and updates to friendly forces, allowing precision airstrikes to stifle the enemy's attack, and ultimately permitting medical evacuation aircraft to rescue him, his fellow soldiers, Marines, and Afghan Army soldiers. Specialist Kyle J. White's extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, Company C, 2nd Battalion Airborne, 503rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade, and the United States Army. Kyle suffered a mild traumatic brain injury from the RPG explosions and carried bullet fragmentations from the AK-47 round that shattered on a rock in front of him on his face through 2014. In 2008, Kyle was assigned to the 4th Ranger Training Battalion at Fort Benning and left the Army in May of 2011. He went on to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration in 2013. On the 13th of May, 2014, Kyle J. White received the Medal of Honor from President Obama in a ceremony at the White House. And that was a Tale of Honor. Thank you so much for listening to Tales of Honor podcast. I know you like this podcast, so just do me a favor. Do it for me. Or don't do it for me. I don't even care if you do it for me. Go on over to wherever it is you listen to this podcast, and or on Facebook or wherever, and leave us a good review, a good rating, and be sure to tell the next person you see. That's it. Simple as that. You can see more information on Facebook and Instagram and at talesofhonorpodcast.com. If you have any questions or comments, or maybe you would like to be a partner of this show in one way, shape, or form, you can send an email over to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrose. Thanks for listening.